Samedi 1er juin, plus d'une cinquantaine d'intervenants d'une quinzaine de pays se sont réunis sur la place des Nations à Genève. Leur objectif, s'opposer aux projets d'accords internationaux sur les pandémies, discutés lors de la 77e Assemblée mondiale de la santé. Selon certains de ces experts, les autorités sanitaires auraient abusé de leur pouvoir lors de la pandémie de Covid entre 2020 et 2023.
Yesterday we had a close conference at a hotel here in Geneva. Today we're meeting the public and speaking here in front of the United Nations building to express our beliefs in what the future should look like and what we're up against in terms of resisting the push to globalism and in particular the imposition of a treaty or accord from the World Health Organization together with the international health regulations that would compromise not only freedom but sovereignty, national sovereignty and individual sovereignty.
Parce qu'à partir du moment où le financement est principalement privé par quelqu'un qui a intérêt à vendre des vaccins, il y a un conflit d'intérêts qui est évident. Donc, d'ailleurs, on voit depuis, je suis psychiatre depuis une bonne vingtaine d'années, les définitions des maladies changent et les seuils par exemple, d'alerte changent. Et du coup, on vend de plus en plus de boîtes de médicaments. Ça a été vrai pour le cholestérol, ça a été vrai pour l'hypertension artérielle, pour le diabète, etc. Et dès qu'on baisse le seuil d'alerte, forcément, on vend des milliards de boîtes en plus.
I'm here today because I became aware that the World Health Organization was involved in negotiating a treaty and modifications to the international health regulations that outline a structure of global tyranny. I was quite shocked when I read it. I did not think that the WHO was powerful enough to be dangerous until I read these documents and realized what they were attempting, and decided that however poor our odds were, we had to put everything into defeating the World Health Organization in its attempt to create this structure which would destroy the sovereignty of our nations and our individual sovereignty.
Ils ne se rendent pas compte qu'on est en train de marcher sur notre souveraineté, qu'on est en train de marcher sur notre liberté. Et ils pensent qu'il vaut mieux avoir moins de liberté, mais plus de sécurité. Et ça, c'est le gros souci. Moi, je suis pour la liberté de chacun, et que la liberté de chacun s'arrête, ou commence celle de l'autre, évidemment. Mais c'est la première fois que, pendant une pandémie, on nous dit qu'un vaccin pour protéger les autres, alors qu'un vaccin, c'est fait pour se protéger soi. Et en l'occurrence, actuellement, on sait très bien que le vaccin ne protégeait pas il permettait quand même la contagion.
De son côté, le 1er juin, l'OMS a adopté de nouveaux amendements au règlement sanitaire international. Ces articles définissent les structures et les responsabilités pour la gestion des urgences sanitaires mondiales. 2 pays, le Costa Rica et la Slovaquie, ont déjà annoncé leur intention de se retirer des amendements. Les autres États membres auront entre 10 et 18 mois pour décider de se retirer ou non. Un comité a été mis en place pour continuer à travailler sur ces textes et proposer un compromis. Celui-ci sera certainement discuté lors d'une session spéciale plus tard dans l'année.
L'exercice de la médecine est en principe un exercice indépendant. La liberté thérapeutique en particulier devrait être garantie pour tout médecin, ce qui permet à chaque médecin d'agir en toute indépendance pour l'intérêt de son patient. Donc cette relation médecin-patient est absolument capitale, notamment pour la confiance. Dès que vous aurez des médecins qui obéiront à des injonctions d'autorités supérieures pour leur imposer des traitements, on pourra fortement douter de l'indépendance nécessaire pour la pratique médicale et pour garantir l'intérêt prioritaire du patient.
I believed some things that I now know were false. I believed that the virus was more dangerous than it was. I believed that there was a good chance that masks would have a positive effect. I believed, although I never thought that the lockdowns that we faced were of any use, I did think when I believed that the pathogen was newly circulating, that there might be a potential for certain lockdowns to drive it to extinction, which would be very valuable if you could do it. I now know that would not have worked, and in each case, I have said what I got wrong and why I got it wrong, and I find nothing problematic about that. I think that's exactly what we should all do, is try to get it right as best as we can, and when we get it wrong, say so and get back to being right as quick as we can do it.
What has struck me in all of my travels to Europe, to Brussels, to Marseille, Massy, to Rome, and now recently to Bucharest, has been how similar all the policies and practices, as well as the propaganda message, have been throughout the world. Again, also visiting Vienna, I was shocked to find that the same strategies of purchasing influencers through payments early on in the COVID crisis to get them to endorse these policies were deployed just as they were in the United States and throughout Europe and throughout the Western world. It's been shocking to me how harmonized the propaganda and the policies have been, particularly through the West and most particularly within the Five Eyes nations that are controlled by the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, which is of course closely allied with NATO.
Nous avons des droits. Nous avons des droits qui sont, si on veut, des droits naturels. Nous naissons sur cette terre avec notamment un droit à la liberté, à vivre selon ce qu'on veut, tout en respectant l'autre. Et c'est pas parce qu'une société s'organise et devient très complexe que ces droits devraient nous être enlevés par des lois qui sont dictées par des gens finalement qui ont des intérêts de classe. Et là, je parle de cette oligarchie mondialiste hyper riche, etc., qui s'organise dans des cercles comme le World Economic Forum, les groupes Bilderberg, qu'est-ce qu'il y a encore, la trilatérale, enfin, tous ces groupements-là où ces gens discutent au-dessus de nous et influencent nos politiciens et autres, soit je sais pas, en les corrompant d'une manière ou d'une autre, en les faisant chanter.
There's a trick that is being played on us. Structures that are bureaucratic and uninteresting and historically not very powerful are being used to override the liberties that are written into our constitutions. And we must not underestimate their power to do this. The founders of our nations did not understand what kind of world we would live in. They did not understand the international nature of commerce, and so they could not have anticipated this threat. And it is up to us to repel this challenge to our sovereignty, because otherwise our children and our grandchildren will regret our failure.
Au départ, ce sont les États qui devaient financer cette organisation supranationale, et petit à petit, ce ne sont plus les États qui financent, mais des organisations privées. Il faut beaucoup chercher parce que quand on va sur le site de l'OMS, on voit que finalement les privés donnent à hauteur de 10-20%. Mais lorsqu'on cherche vraiment, on trouve qu'ils donnent à hauteur de 80%. Derrière tout un tas d'organisations et la nébuleuse, c'est finalement des privés qui financent l'OMS. Et on arrive à 80% avec la fondation en tête, Melinda Gates, Gavi, qui est l'Alliance pour les vaccins, le Global Fund, qui est aussi... qui appartient plus ou moins à Bill Gates, etc. Donc c'est inquiétant parce qu'il y a une fusion d'intérêts privés. Il y a pour nous un conflit d'intérêts certain.
Plusieurs médecins présents à la mobilisation pensent que certains lots de vaccins Covid-19 peuvent provoquer plus d'effets secondaires que d'autres. Ils ont également observé que les effets secondaires sont souvent sous-déclarés par les professionnels de santé. Ils ont émis des préoccupations sur les risques potentiels des vaccins à ARN messager, affirmant qu'ils pourraient être liés à des cancers et des maladies auto-immunes. Ces affirmations sont toutefois contestées par d'autres experts.
I've done a lot of research in the laboratory, similar to the work of my great mentor and late great friend, Dr. Arne Burkhardt from Germany. I've done similar studies in my laboratory showing the harms that these injections have caused in the human body and showing the accumulation of the proteins causing death in young people and old people alike. So my purpose as a scientific researcher, as a pathologist, is show the cause of death. And these shots caused a lot of death around the world. I have support of a lot of physicians around the world, and a lot of doctors are finally waking up. The hard part is nobody wants to admit that they ever harmed a patient or harmed themselves. So to ask for forgiveness is obviously hard in life. And so a lot of my colleagues don't agree, but they haven't looked through the microscope like I have. And I like to say the cells do not lie. I look at the cells, I see the damage. An injection that carries a gene that goes into our cells will always cause damage to the body. human cells are meant to make human proteins. And when a human cell makes a foreign protein through this genetic programming, those cells will always be attacked by our own immune system. So it's critically important to understand this entire platform and technology, not just these COVID shots, but using this synthetic mRNA is dangerous in the future. Always was, never was a good idea. And going forward, it's the job of physicians to wake up. Most physicians don't understand the immune system. And it's time for doctors to go back to school and learn and never allow their patients to be guinea pigs, experimental subjects.
I think so, they will have to. And we also see that, you know, even the authorities are getting cold feet, so to speak. I think, and many of these people are colleagues and peers, and, you know, they know how to look into data. They have that kind of, interest or that kind of nose for it. So, you know, eventually they will. And also because, as they're saying here, people are dying from the side effects. My concern is that we were looking into the short-term side effects. What about the long-term side effects? What about the cancers? What about the heart issues? And that's my problem, and that's my worry, that since they haven't been aware on the short-term side effects, they're even less aware about the long-term side effects. So I think from our point of view, this is like we need to go on. Now and then you think, oh, I can't do it, you know, why it has to be me and all that. But I think we have an obligation to keep looking on the data, to keep looking also on cancers, heart issues, and this and that. And also just from Danish numbers, we just saw that, you know, when you die, it has a cause. And that cause where it says without any medical known cause, you know, death without medical known cause, has just from until 22, and you know, when you started the rollout, exploded with 250% rise. At the same time, we have the excess mortality. At the same time, we have a rapidly falling birth rate.
They use name calling instead of science. And for me, look, you can attack me all you want, but let's talk about the issue. And the science is clear at this point. The data is clear. We do have a problem around the world with governments not opening up their medical databases. The harms are abundant. It's easy to see in the countries that have been open and transparent with their data sets, but even some of those countries are starting to close their data sets. Trust in life is very simple. It's truth plus transparency. And we're lacking transparency in science. And I think once they see the data, it's hard not to know what I know. I'm always willing to be wrong, but those cells don't lie.
Une conférence internationale d'avocats s'est tenue en marge de la 77e Assemblée mondiale de la santé. Les experts y ont exprimé leurs inquiétudes quant aux implications potentielles des amendements en délibération.
What they're going to do is they're going to institute a Chinese-style social credit system all over the world. So in the China social credit system, they have all these things that they track about people, and they're all put down into their phones. So they track, you know, facial recognition, real-time geolocation, so they know what you look like, where you are, where you work, where you live, your medical records, your criminal records if you have any, but then also your social media posts, your internet search history, your internet spending history, you know, basically your bank account, your credit card, they're all attached so that they can have a complete view of who you are and whether you are a compliant Chinese communist, you know, sheep. And if you are, if you never make any waves, if you always obey the government, then you can have freedom. But as soon as you, for example, refuse to get vaccinated, or if you criticize the government, your social credit score will go down. And then they will do things like you can lose your job. You won't be able to buy a home because you won't be able to borrow any money. Your kid won't be able to go to a good school. And you continue it, and then they will sever you, cut you off from your credit card and your bank account. And if you keep it up, they'll just disappear you. And they'll also punish your family and friends for even being associated with you. This is the model, the China model, that the World Health Organization is trying to impose all over the world through the World Health through the pandemic treaty and the international health regulations.
We were 10 lawyers and one more researcher, and we just explained the dangerous contents of these WHO treaties and plans to the general public. Of course, if these plans get reality, what we try to do everything against, we can do, we will have a kind of globalist regime which threatens, of course, the sovereignty of states, which will threaten human rights positions. It threatens, in fact, every single human rights. During the COVID crisis, we have already seen what it means.
And now these amendments, they create so far-reaching legal obligations, not only for member states, but also en France pour les départements, en Suisse, in Switzerland for the cantons, and even for the municipalities. Far-reaching obligations, constant surveillance, constant testing of the wastewater, and then analyzing these emergency use authorizations will come. That means authorizations without any testing whatsoever. In my view, the most important aspect, and about sovereignty. Every person is a self-determined person, only as long as you can base your decisions on the true facts, and as you are free to choose what kind of facts are relevant for you. Informed consent always means you must be given the complete set of all the relevant information to allow you to make the choice. And if you are not making the choice yourself, but WHO says there is the danger and this is the solution and everything else is wrong, then you are deprived of your sovereignty and of yourself. So this is basically what you are doing as media, to report about the other sides that are underreported, that are not reported. Thank you so much for doing it. I am personally in contact with 80, 90 lawyers worldwide, and the number is growing. Yeah, absolutely. And so what we did today was to foster, to booster not only our community, but to reach out to those who are still a little bit reluctant and waiting for the real moment to speak out. We must now all unite.
And if you go on the World Economic Forum website, they're very similar to the China social credit system. You're going to need a digital ID to access government benefits, to vote, to pay your taxes. You'll need a digital ID in order to shop, to access your bank account, your credit card, to have a bank account. You have to have a digital ID. To travel, to own a communications device like a cell phone or a computer, to be on social media. Basically every aspect of life on Earth, you're going to need a digital ID. And so when they're tracking all of this about you, they can just control you if you do something, if you step out of line. Like, for example, if you decide you don't want a vaccine or you criticize the government, they can make it so that you can't use your bank account or your credit card, like what happened in Canada to the Canadian truckers.
I believe that, as I said in my speech, that if we extend empathy, if we try to understand the frame of reference that the World Health Organization and those that it represents, these global elites, have endorsed and seem to fully believe in, it seems like they have a sense of noblesse oblige, that they truly believe that the world is in danger of a major, we could call it existential crisis, a major global environmental catastrophe, major economic catastrophes, and they seem to truly believe that the solution to this is centralized control, centralized planning, what many of us would call socialist Marxism. Others might call it corporatism, or might even say that it has the characteristics of 20th century fascism, but with a new technology aspect to it. Hence the endorsement of transhumanism, as I just was speaking about here on the podium. I think that they are fundamentally wrong. I believe that the solution to enable human innovation and to avoid the Malthusian trap that they believe we are heading towards of overpopulation and economic and environmental damage is to enable innovation. And innovation is killed by centralized control, by command economies.
En tout cas, ce que je vois un peu tous les jours, c'est le désespoir qui s'installe. Il y a de plus en plus de gens qui se sentent tellement infantilisés, tellement démunis, tellement impuissants qu'ils se dépriment et qui sont prêts à suivre effectivement n'importe ce qu'on leur dit, n'importe quoi, par désespoir, de guerre lasse. Ce sont des manœuvres perverses, c'est comme ça qu'on démoralise effectivement les gens, c'est les rendre impuissants. Il y en a beaucoup, des manœuvres perverses, on pourrait faire toute une émission là-dessus, mais c'est vrai que le désespoir s'installe.
Ce qui est très important, c'est que chacun reprenne sa souveraineté personnelle, c'est-à-dire être capable de dire non quand il faut et d'assumer ce non, ce qui n'est pas toujours facile. Et je crois qu'on a perdu de vue le fait de savoir dire non. On se laisse complètement avoir par notamment nos autorités. On marche comme des bons petits soldats. Mais je crois que peut-être que c'est le moment de dire non et de s'assumer pleinement. Et ensuite, finalement, j'ai envie de dire la souveraineté nationale, c'est que la somme des souverainetés de tous ces citoyens. Donc soyez souverains.
The Epoch Times and NTD News knows well the impact of centralized planning and command economies because they have roots in the CCP and the current Chinese regime. They understand your readership and the leadership of NTD News and Epoch Times fully understands the threat of the centralized control that is practiced by the CCP and which the World Health Organization seems to endorse in their pandemic accord or treaty and the international health regulations.
Bien que les États membres aient adopté des amendements au RSI, les experts interrogés pensent que la manifestation du 1er juin aura un impact significatif sur l'évolution des négociations.
Always stay free. Use your voice. It only takes a few people to start a revolution. Historically in America, when we left England 250 plus years ago, it was 3% of the colonists that started a revolution, and they won. Add your voice to our voice, stand up against tyranny, and always stay free.
J'étais, il y a fort longtemps, donc 35 ans, membre du groupe médical d'Amnesty International ici à Genève. Et on savait que ça avait un impact. Le fait d'écrire des lettres, le fait de solliciter les gouvernements, il y avait eu des études sur ces sujets-là. Et alors, je pense qu'on ne nous mentait pas en disant que ça avait un impact. Et je pense que c'est la même chose actuellement. Ça fait une pression. Ça montre quand même qu'il y a une partie de la population qui n'est pas du tout d'accord, qui dit non, etc. Et je pense que ça crée une pression, ça les embête.
If we just watch the process in how they changed these drafts again and again, it is interesting to see that sometimes they really seem to listen to critical lawyers and other experts because they changed the wording of the text to be less, so they step back in a way. So it seems that they, even if they pretend not to listen to us, it seems that they do.
Je pense qu'on peut tous vraiment reprendre notre pouvoir personnel juste en posant des questions, en disant non, nous sommes tous des êtres humains. C'est déjà énorme d'être un être humain, c'est magnifique, c'est merveilleux, c'est sacré. Et reprendre le goût du sacré, le sens du sacré, reprendre contact avec la partie en soi qui est plus grande que soi et qui nous habite et qui nous inspire, ça donne beaucoup de force et beaucoup d'espoir justement.
Je ne voudrais pas faire peur aux gens, j'aimerais donner un message positif dans le sens de dire la peur mobilise. La peur, ça n'est pas la tétanie, ça n'est pas l'angoisse, ça n'est pas le stress. La peur, ça nous fait respirer plus, ça nous active et on peut réfléchir et prendre des actions intelligentes et qui vont au service de la vie de la communauté.
Well, a rally itself, maybe not on its own, but this rally is part of a much larger process. And what I know is that we took a negotiation that almost nobody was aware of, and we made it widely known, and that we are now seeing large rallies in places I never expected to see resistance. Japan, for example, tens of thousands of people are protesting. We're seeing nation after nation refuse to sign this treaty, and so I know we moved the needle, and I don't know whether we have arrived at the destination yet, but we have no choice but to keep going, because what they have planned for us is truly unthinkable.